Hello everyone and welcome to ZP Productions, and today Nikon just did a very important announcement for the Z9, which is right here. And the announcement, what is it about? It is the brand new firmware that, if you ask me, literally is selling us a brand new camera too. So what does this firmware give us, and really why am I so excited? Okay, let's take a look at the firmware first, and I think let's talk about the known stuff, which is there is going to be a video upgrade. In fact, take a look at my screen here. This is the firmware 2.0. Let's talk about the video upgrade first. Firstly, 12-bit RAW is coming. We expect it. It comes in two flavors in terms of Nikon RAW and RAW. Half the file size or the flexibility, because we already know that they are working with the company that does into pics and the Tico RAW and whatever. And it is going to be smaller. It's going to be 12-bit and it's going to be 60p, 8.3K inside the camera itself. That is going to be really exciting. Now you have a 12-bit RAW that is easily accessible, recorded in the camera, just like the Canon, but without the overheating and problem. At least based on what I see in some of the initial videos that got access to the firmware. Then there is also additional RAW. If you see my screen here, ProRes. So if you are an Apple user and you want to optimize whatever you have in your M1 Max, which is optimized to run ProRes stuff, the ProRes RAW HQ, yes, it will consume more space. It will only come in 12-bit 4.1K ProRes RAW, but you get ProRes RAW and it's absolutely usable and it's going to run perfectly well if you are a Mac user. To me, this is probably even more exciting than NRAW because I want something quick, something fast, something easily editable on my Mac, but still have certain amount of RAW capability. Personally, I'm really looking forward to this when I do all my music video recordings. Now, in addition to that, they actually added quite a bit of features to make this camera literally like a video camera. And one of the things they added is the red border recording, and this is something that you see quite often in Sony cameras and Sony video cameras. Other brands don't really use it. Normally they just use the red dot, but this one at least have the red border, which is very clear cut that this camera is recording. And then they also added waveform display, which I felt was really important. If you are looking at serious monitoring of video, the waveform is the way to go because it will tell you exactly where and which location that there is something that's going to get overexposed or terribly underexposed. And if you're going to use log footage or raw footage, this is actually really important. The other improvements for video will be things like, fine-tuning of ISO to 1.6 adjustment. This is really good, so it's a smooth ramping. And then there is even some little upgrades, stable exposure on the face, toggle between two focus speed. These are things that we will probably have to try out, in the final firmware. There is also one more thing, is the enhanced sharpness and definition for 4K 60p. It means they do oversampling properly. I think some of the reviewers were saying that, the Nikon 4K 60p isn't just as sharp as the rest. But now, with this extended oversampling, we expect it to be as good or as sharp as pretty much what Canon and the A1 is doing, the Sony is doing. So that's pretty much it for the video upgrades. And Nikon never promised any form of photography upgrades, but I can tell you the photography upgrades are even more exciting if you are a photographer for the Nikon system. Let's take a look at it now. So what do you get in the photography upgrade for the Z9? Firstly, you get something of a pre-release capture. ProCap, if you look at Olympus, you look at things like the Panasonic, they have been providing this function, which is it will take shots up to maybe 1 second or up to 5 seconds even before you press the shutter down. This ProCap allows you to constantly capture shots that you would otherwise have missed because human reactions are not that fast. When we press down, we may be like half a millisecond late. With ProCap, now you can capture everything in front of it. Now, I do not know whether is it capturing terms of RAW or is it in terms of JPEG. This is something that when the firmware comes out, we'll probably have to try it out because if it's capturing JPEG, it will not be too useful for me. It may still be really useful for birders and of course some sports photographer, but probably not as useful for me as a portrait photographer. In fact, I would hope that they could adjust a little bit more, maybe just 10 frames in front. I think that'd be good enough. But still really exciting if you ask me. Then they have flexible focusing zone. Now, this is something that's available on the Canon. Canon can actually do all sort of flexi zone. Now, Nikon will also have it. This flexi zone, I believe, was introduced in Olympus camera. At least I do not know what camera has it even before the Olympus. So, Canon has it now, and then Nikon has it now too. So, this is a very exciting thing. because as you can see in the example here, you can really focus on where you want to focus. So it captures the focus point really well. Now this is really going to be exciting, and now let's take a look at some other functions. Set and record focus position with any Nikon Z lens, which means that if you're using any Z lens, you can recall it to a certain focus point, which will be very important if you're doing sports photography itself. And then if we look for, wow, this is something I really didn't expect. They actually did a hardware upgrade. I mean, increasing the viewfinder to 120 FPS with a firmware. This is the first time I've seen a camera company that actually unlocks hardware-like functions on a camera using firmware itself. It's going to be really exciting. I mean, these were, increase the frame rate in the viewfinder, and maybe even decrease the overall latency of the camera by a little bit more, a few more milliseconds. I'll probably have to retry the whole latency test again. Of course, that is not a scientific test, it's based on what I try. But I can expect this to be even slightly better than previously, which is already very good on a Nikon camera itself. Now, there are some other things that I don't really care too much about blending motion into one incredible image, because normally this is post-composites. And then there's, of course, the long exposure checking, in terms of timing in the camera itself. Now, this one, if you are into astrophotography and long exposure, you'll probably be excited in it. Now, there is, of course, a little bit more of the upgrades, such as improve auto white balance, move between focus point. Then all the other things which, personally, I don't think that they are that exciting compared to whatever was announced at the top. Overall, now, this firmware literally is giving us a brand new camera. They could have launched a Z9 II with all these functions in it, and we would think that it's an improvement anyway. I mean, seriously, improving the viewfinder to 120 FPS, giving us 2 types of RAW, giving us waveforms. I mean, everything that is put in this, upgrade here could have been a brand new camera under Nikon itself. And Nikon just gave us, I won't say it's for free because the RAW is expected, but almost everything else wasn't really expected itself. The Nikon Z9 after this firmware may actually be one of the best, if not, it may actually be the best if you ask me. Based on just what is promised here, if everything pans out nicely, it may actually be, if you ask me, the best camera to utilize for a lot of situations, other than its size and weight itself. But that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this short little update. Personally, I'm very excited. As a user of multiple systems, I'm all in for upgrades to flagship cameras because I own all of them. And I can tell you that with this, I have full confidence that Nikon will do a really good job in the cameras ahead, because they have just given us a literally brand new camera, so much more capability than what was before, with no cost, just a firmware upgrade. That's about it. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.